Welcome to the Rustic Garden. Today's Memorial Day and I want to show you how I set up the planting areas for planting cucumbers, but this is also how I set it up for cucumbers, squash, and zucchini. They're heavy feeding plants, so you really want to provide enough organic matter and fertilizer in your space so that your plant will thrive through the growing season. And I set this up a little bit differently than a lot of my other plants. I put in a bag of humus manure. That's chicken pellets and some other composted material. But the NPK in there is 0.15, 0.15, and 0.15. So it's a low amount of NP and K, but it will be available for most of the growing season for the cucumbers, squash, and tomatoes. I'm not going to show you how I put it into the ground because I think that would sort of waste your time, but I'm going to talk about it because it's pretty easy to set up. In this space here, I grow cucumbers. I'm going to show you some trellising options too. I put in a bag and a half of the composted manure, the humus manure, in this whole area, and then I work it down to about 12 inches into the soil, 10 or 12 inches, and that just sets it up for the growing season. Then I dig a hole to about that depth, and I use I'm using an organic fertilizer, but I use both. It's about a 5-5-5 fertilizer, and I'll put 2 tablespoons right into that hole and then use the shovel to really mix it into about, I don't know, 8 inches or so. You just don't want the root system to sit on fertilizer, be it organic or chemical. And then, fill it in to a depth right just like that. And that sets up my cucumbers, squash, and zucchini to start growing. Now, these are transplants that I started actually 6 weeks ago, and typically you want to start these about 4 weeks before they're ready to go into the ground because they grow really quickly. However, we had weird weather with 18 days of rain, so they grew a little bit more slowly, and which is okay, but you can see that the root systems of the cucumber aren't coiling around. There's plenty of room for growth. So time this for your transplants about 4 weeks before they would go into the ground. This is a squash, this is a spaghetti squash, and they're starting to get a little bit coiled, but just break them up a little bit, and that's how they would get planted into the ground. For cucumbers, I put 2 to a space. You can thin them down if they both take off and grow. What's the difference? If you're using just one cucumber, the maintenance is a little bit easier. If you have a lot of leaf growth, there's more chances for disease, so you have to maintain them a little more. So that's a market more. It's growing on this trellis that is just a rack from Home Depot for a closet that I secure to a couple pressure treated, I think they're 1x1s. They're used for decorating. Here's another trellis made out of chicken wire. Those are for pickle bush. Those cucumbers won't grow as big as the market more. And then here's another teepee type trellis that I'll let those cucumbers grow right up there. Let me go show you a couple more that are growing. I'm in the midst of getting everything in for my warm weather crops. I'm going to do a whole video of this area in a little bit. So right in here along the fence line, or close to the fence, that's an Armenian cucumber. That one actually didn't get the manure in there. This is a straight 8 that got the manure mixed into it. And they will grow along the fence. If you're tight for space, you can grow them in large containers. The bottom of that container is cut out, and that's set up with really, I think, 3 tablespoons of the organic fertilizer in there. And those are bush champion right there, pickle bush. They will actually grow up the tomato cage. Coming around this way, I have some more cucumbers that are growing in another container there, and I can see that actually just from last night ants moved into there. I'm gonna have to take care of those, but they're going to grow up yet another trellis. And these are just some ways you can grow your cucumbers. Here's a squash that I'm going to grow up the tomato cage. It's supported by an extra stake because they do get heavy. That makes it easier to manage the squash, also get under the leaves to take care of disease and bugs. And let's see, I got one more in here. That's going to grow up a cage. And then I have my round zucchini back there that'll just grow free. But the most important thing for setting up your cucumbers, your squash, your zucchinis is to really amend the soil, get in your organic fertilizers, get in, if you want to use chemical fertilizers, that's fine, about a 5-5-5, and also put in some composted manure to really give them a base to grow into, because they are heavy feeders, and you will notice sometimes when you plant them, they start out great and then they start to yellow a little bit. That's because they're just sucking the life out of the soil. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out my blog, www.therustigarden.blogspot.com, and also check out my YouTube videos.